right, we need to go back a little bit. Yep.
Last time you saw it, our sleeper small block was fresh from a 610 horsepower dyno run.
Just a little bit. Okay, back. Right there, down. Down. Right there, hold on.
Finished the suspension and bolted up a TCI 6-speed automatic transmission. That was followed by some fab work to make a new trans cross member and to make our headers fit. Finally, we made and installed our own exhaust system before mounting a fuel cell and finishing up the fuel delivery system. So what's next as we try to finish up this thing? Well, first up, a TurboTrack serpentine drive system that's made to fit most small block Fords. Comes with all the pulleys, mounts, and spacers, and belt, of course. Then we're going to load it up with some accessories from Tough Stuff, including this AC compressor, 100 amp alternator, and power steering pump. After that, well, we're going to show you how to cool a 610 horsepower 427. Of course, there's more work than that involved if we plan to get this thing out on the street today and beat it up. We got to get busy. The foundation for our Visual Impact Performance TurboTrack is a new water pump. Then, using 2 round spacers, the main bracket bolts to the pump. Next to go on are spacers and mounting brackets on both the passenger side and driver side. Now we got a place to mount the Peanut AC compressor and the compact new power steering pump. Over on the driver's side, we can mount the alternator, then time for the TurboTrack billet pulleys. First for the crank, then the water pump pulley, and finally the power steering pump. The belt will go on later.
The cooling system's next, and it starts with this Griffin aluminum radiator. Now it's made to the same outer dimensions with a thicker core for better cooling. The stock fan was too deep, so we had to go with this Hayden 2-speed high-performance electric fan. The radiator requires a separate expansion tank to fill it. Now ours is going to need a little fab work to get it mounted. I'm making a bracket with loops for bolts to pass through, and it'll get fastened to this Canton aluminum tank. It will share a spot with the MSD digital 6AL ignition box that has a built-in rev limiter, and still leave enough room for the matching coil. For plumbing, we're running 2 pieces of rubber hose, one from the radiator and one from the water pump. Then they get connected to a T-fitting. Then a piece of braided hose runs from the T, and once it's cut to length, it can be connected to the bottom of the expansion tank. On the side of the tank, we use a fitting and a piece of small hose that goes back to the radiator to get rid of any trapped air in it.
Planting the battery in the trunk is always good for a little better weight distribution. This kit we got from Summit has all the parts and hardware to get the job done. The battery is an Optima red top, and we especially like these Accel lightning cables for both positive and negative terminals.
After grounding the negative cable to the frame rail, we can run the red positive cable all the way up to the PowerMaster starter, keeping it clear from any heat sources or rotating parts. Stock gauges are fine for monitoring the engine's usual vital signs, but John's making a template for a system that will put some high performance in the T-Bird's dash as well.
Don't you love new toys? This is what Autometer calls their ProComp Pro Multifunction Dash Logger. A lot of words, but this thing has a lot of functions too. Now it allows you to use software and all kinds of sensors to monitor everything from G-forces to, well, this is for drive shaft RPMs. Now, of course, you monitor vital signs for the engine as well. Oh, and that template John was working on is for this. It's a display screen featuring up to 6 screens that you can configure and monitor yourself. And, well, after a run at the track, you can download data that tells you everything you want to know about that run. For example, at an autocross event, if this driver had one loaded up, he could review speeds and elapsed times through the course, G-forces at every turn, everything he and the car did. On the other hand, if this driver had one, well, maybe there's a display that says, go back and try again.
John's been busy making the data logger fit into the T-Bird's dash. It looks like it was well worth the time. And very soon we'll be ready to feed it with all the information it was made for.
We're back, and after a couple of hours of wiring work, Mike's almost finished under the hood.
Here's a little something you can learn the hard way, or I can save you a lot of time right now. Most of the accessory drives out on the market these days have thick powder coating on all the bracketry for appearance. The only problem is it doesn't allow the alternator to ground out to complete the circuit. So a lot of people will go through sometimes 2, 3 alternators before they find the problem. So here's a simple solution. We'll run a wire from the alternator housing to the intake manifold. Total cost, about 15 cents worth of hardware.
The final piece of our visual impact drive kit's the power steering pump reservoir that bolts directly to the block. We plumb it with AN fittings. Now we can button up the cooling system with Formaflex radiator hose from Earl's. It's stainless steel with billet end sleeves.
Now here's something cool, not necessarily new, but now available for everybody. Instead of ugly metal hose clamps, these from Gates Power Grip are heat shrinkable, thermoplastic material that not only look great, you'll never have to retighten or worry about leaks again. It's like a heat shrink wrap on steroids.
To power the fuel pump and trans harness, we're going to use a 7-circuit fuse block. We're mounting it inside the car behind the driver's seat for a central location to the battery, which is out back. Now the wires from the harness marked for the battery positive and negative need to go directly to the battery terminals. The fuel pump gets its power from a switched 12-volt wire from the fuse block. The negative will be attached to a ground lug on the subframe.
All right, now comes the hard part. Actually connecting everything. We knew this is gonna go down underneath the car, so watch it go bye-bye for now.
The trans harness looks intimidating, but each wire and weather pack connector are labeled for where they should go. The instructions are straightforward and need to be kept handy during installation. Now, one thing about the hot and the negatives on this system, just like any fuel injection system, they need to go directly to the battery positive and negative. Don't hook them up to any switches, any distribution blocks, or anything. Straight to the battery. And hook the transmission stuff up now.
Okay.
Let's go up with it. The largest section of the harness will go through the trans tunnel and underneath the car. It attaches to the driver's side of the trans and to multiple sensors. Next up is the TCI Outlaw shifter. It has built-in momentary buttons that will be used to manually shift the trans. It mounts to a 3/16" plate that will be placed above a piece of sheet metal to close off the large shifter hole. It bolts to the original shifter plate location. For the missing link, the shifter cable will attach to the front of the shifter and go through the floor to the transmission. Finally, I can reposition the center console, carefully routing the harness so it doesn't get pinched.
That's gonna work. Nice.
Here's some more really cool features about the 6X transmission. Now I'm just moving the shifter back so you can see these 2 red buttons. Now the toggle switch that's closest to you is labeled bump. When it's turned on, that lets us manually shift between the forward 6 gears, shift up and shift down. When it's off, the transmission shifts like a normal automatic. Now another thing is the second switch closest to me is labeled economy and performance. When it's activated, the transmission goes into a more performance-oriented shift strategy. It increases line pressure and shift points depending on what you enter into the handheld. We're ready to introduce the throttle to the transmission. First with the harness, then with some hardware. The cable goes through a universal bracket and attaches to the original detent location on the carburetor linkage. Now the reason we did that is the transmission has to see a throttle position. Now because the carburetor doesn't have a TPS sensor, TCI came up with the next best thing. It's a remote mount TPS sensor that works off the original detent location of the bracket. And it goes just like that. Now be sure to mount it where the cable won't bind. The last requirement for the trans is a cooler. Now it came with the transmission from TCI, so we are going to use it. And with that, here's my favorite part of any project, an empty parts table. So far, we've finished up a lot of plumbing and wiring. Enjoyable when you have plenty of time, tedious when you're in a hurry. But before we're done today, I'm determined to choke on some tire smoke. Remember that data logger instrument panel John installed? Well, they included the software needed to make it all communicate. It's capable of some sophisticated monitoring, but for starters, we're going to keep it simple. After checking for clearance, the O2 sensor needs to be unscrewed but still connected to the system for proper calibration. Autometer kept it simple. The flashing light says we're there. To celebrate, a round of royal purple. Oil, power steering, and some Be Cool to keep cool. The TCI Trans brought its own, almost a case of max shift.
Do we have fuel in it?
Nope.
We'll put a little more weight to the back end.
That's 93 octane at 6 PSI.
You got power hooked up in the back already?
I do.
All right. Well, watch for smoke.
No, don't say that. You know where the fire extinguishers are?
Yes.
Good. There we go. All right, everything looks good. Let's fire it up.
All right.
I got a little exhaust leak over here. Tap, 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 tap. I'm not gonna deal with it now though. All right, cool. Too much work to get that header back out.
Yeah. In keeping with a sleeper look, we're reusing the stock wheels, but for rubber up front, a narrow 26 by 8.5 Mickey Thompson Sportsman. Out back, a couple of ET Street Radials. It's a DOT approved way to get down the track fast and have a good ride home. Next, a trip to the chassis dyno. No, not to test power. We've already done that. This time, it's all about calibrating the TCI 6-speed trans.
You don't have to perform surgery to the inside of an automatic transmission to make modifications anymore. Now you can do it all with a handheld monitor, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. In the Easy TCU setup menu, you select things like transmission type, RPM shift speed, rear end gear, and number of cylinders. Now with those options selected, we can see how the transmission reacts. No, you don't need a chassis dyno to do this. It's designed to be done on the road. But since we can preload the rear drums, the tranny won't know the difference. Remember the switch on the center console labeled bump? Well, this is how it works. Now you don't have to stop there. There's even an advanced options section that lets you go in and select other things like the shift aggressiveness, shift firmness, and even the torque converter lockup. Basically everything you need to blow somebody's doors off. Now unfortunately, I've got a huge exhaust leak I need to fix, so I won't be going anywhere today.
You're watching Horsepower. For a DVD copy of this episode, just go to PowerBlockTV.com and order your copy for just $5.95 plus shipping and handling. Start your own Horsepower collection, delivered right to your door from the Power Block.
With over 250 million passenger vehicles on America's roads, it often takes professional mechanics to keep them running and rolling. And these guys want the best tools available to get the job done. That's what brings us to this convention center hotel in Orlando, Florida, where a record crowd of Matco distributors showed up for this year's expo.
We have well over 150 new products, 75 new and exclusive products. So again, they're here to understand what they need to carry, what they can carry to differentiate themselves from their competitors.
A distributor's truck is his full-service mobile store that he brings to his mechanic customers.
So now a distributor needs a truck like this to get the tools to the places he needs to get them to. Now this thing has areas to store toolboxes, plenty of shelving, and even overhead storage for a lot of the small loose items. The only problem now, you need the tools to fill it up.
And that's what this expo is all about. Of course, you don't have to be a professional mechanic to get a kick out of this journey. Just watch your speed and don't cross the yellow line. At every stop, you'll find something new and improved. Even impact tool sockets like the ADVs, which stands for Advantage. Highly visible markings indexed to mounting hose are just one advantage to these.
Some brands use a short nose down, but the Matco Advantage, clearly you can get into an area with this tapered parallel nose down that the short nose down format, so it's about access.
Even the tools you load those sockets onto have been upgraded to give the end user a better grip and control. What's really amazing are the cordless tools made possible by new lithium battery technology.
Brand new technology behind the whole deal here.
This little guy is their new 1/4-inch model.
This thing actually has a variable trigger on it, and it's capable of 55 foot-pounds of torque, which is unheard of in this size of a package.
Check out the king of the cordless lineup, capable of 725 foot-pounds of breakaway torque. Then all kinds of diagnostic tools, which keep getting smaller while loading up a bigger array of functions and features. All tools need a good home, and the boxes, well, they get better and more beautiful every year. But it's more about function than fashion.
We got our hutches, the new hutches. We've got integral power strips in them, lights come standard, all series. We've got an easy to move door here. I can do this with one hand.
Here we discover how creepers can do a lot more than just creep.
It's got heavy-duty steel frame, polyurethane wheels, all bearing casters. Comes up from a creeper to a creeper seat. Folds down to a Z creeper.
But with his store on wheels, a distributor has to carry anything that makes the register ring, so to speak. From cool shades, I don't think so, to hot coffee. Increasingly, these expos have become more like, well, family reunions.
It's not just about the driver. This is really about a family business. So you have husbands and wives and kids here, and they're all invested in the success of these businesses and in these franchises. And then Matco is really invested in their success as well. We're a partner in their success, and I think that that's what makes Matco really different.
Matco rules, man, #1.
And to really rule the tool world, this year's theme is
Own the streets, and our competitors are going to be working the streets next year if we have our druthers about it.
Well, we'd rather stick around for a while, but I guess it's time for us to head home, and we'll see you next time.